I'd love you to tell me more about this past, present, and future. Maybe talking about your approach to the project from the very beginning. What were your initial thoughts with this work, and why do you think you were having them about it?
Well, originally when I saw the email that 42nd Street were putting on a project, I kind of just glossed over it, and then I kept thinking about my past, my current, present, and then also what I'd like to see in the future. And because a lot of my life is quite clinical, I've done some in the past with 42nd Street creatively, so I became quite interested of doing a project that meant I could be creative. It gave me that little bit of inspiration and motivation to do something again, because I was in quite a dark place and I thought I missed being able to do something creative. And then it just kept rolling on my mind, like my past, my present, and I just kept thinking about all different things. And at high school I did photography, I got an A star, and then in A level I was actually a photography student. Then my life took a turn. I've always been quite creative. Obviously my life took a bit of a turn and I've not been able to finish my education. Like I said, my life's quite clinical. Even now, even though I finished treatment, it's still quite like centered around the hospital. So being able to involve myself in a project through 42nd Street, it like just saying yes to the opportunity was like a big thing for me, because when you're at school, there's plenty of opportunities to do art projects and get involved, whereas I had to drop out, so I didn't have access to those opportunities anymore. So just being able to take part was such a privilege, really was, and I'm grateful for it, really.
And it's been really I'm really enjoying the process working with you, and it's been really educational for me as well. Like, you've taught me loads, and I found some of the ideas you talked about right at the beginning really quite profound. I remember you talking about isolation, because we're all dealing with this COVID thing at the moment, and for a lot of people, isolation was really a new thing. What about for you? How did you tackle that?
Well, at the start of all this, I remember I had the chance to speak to like a celebrity over a Zoom call, and he actually quoted me the next day on his website, and it was the one thing that I said was, I'm an expert at being in isolation. Now, 2 years ago, obviously, my life took a turn. I knew what it was like to have my life changed overnight. Now, I was in the quarantine lifestyle before it was cool, you know? Like, I know I shouldn't really joke about it, but that was my reality. Like, I used to be one who looked like a freak wiping the tables down in McDonald's. I look like the freak carrying hand sanitizer everywhere. Whereas if you're not doing that now, you're the freak. So in a way, my lifestyle's now my new normal is now everybody's new normal in a way. Even in the news, I still keep seeing people going on saying like, when's lockdown going to end? When are we going to be normal again? And well, the future is literally uncertain. And I thought the same for me, because even though I'm now at the survivorship status, even my future's uncertain, you know? Like, I only have a chronic status. So when you're a chronic patient, you don't know, like, really what's going to happen to you in the future. You don't know when you're going to, tomorrow I could feel great and go back to work and do all sorts, or it could take me years. I don't know. It's like I said, the future is uncertain. It's the same for COVID. These are all things I thought about pre-COVID, and now all of a sudden it's happening to everyone. I'm just kind of like, like join the club kind of thing. Like, been there, like, got the t-shirt for it, you know. It's one of those situations.
What I liked about your process and when you're making your visual art was when you were talking about uncertainty, you came up with an idea, because we were talking about cut paper, but you came up with an idea of, instead of doing it around these figures that you'd created, you wanted to do it across. And can you just talk me through that process of that decision, and how you made it interesting with the opacity and stuff, and what that might reflect for you?
A lot of it was like experimenting, and obviously I really like the colour scheme. quite a fan of it. But to me, it kind of just represented like moving on, and like that's literally all we can do as a society is learn from our past, move on, even though it's not as easy. And one thing that I learned through 42nd Street was literally just off a t-shirt, and it was progress over perfection, and it really struck out to me because I was in such like a dark place. Like there's times where in my recovery it's literally still a journey. Once you ring that end of treatment bell, your journey's still going on, and it's literally been a roller coaster. And there's been times I've been in a dark place, and like, and I think a lot of I've just been hit with a lot of frustration because, like I said, once you reach that survivorship status, you have these ideals of what your future's going to look like. And I guess a lot of it is I was being impatient and wondering, when is my life going to look that perfect, you know? Because when I started treatment, I had this attitude of, let's just get on with it, let's just get it out of the way. And I was a bit naive and didn't really realise that I'd have all these issues once I finished. And, well, really, it's not as glamorous as I thought, recovery. And one thing I want to represent or get across to people is, it is literally progress is what you should be focusing on more. It should be glamorized and celebrated more, is progress, rather than focusing on that perfection and getting frustrated that you're not there yet. And one thing that my family were always saying to me was, this is a marathon, not a race. So you just got to pace yourself, you know, and do it in your own time, and you're not competing against anyone else or comparing yourself to anyone else. And I think that is so true, because the amount of times during my treatment and even after I was comparing myself to other people, it was bringing on a lot of shame for me, a lot of guilt, but also a lot of frustration of, like, why is it not perfect for me, whereas it looks perfect for someone else, whereas they probably did have struggles, they're just not showing it, you know?
Yeah, like that Instagram lifestyle of what? Tell me about that and how you feel about that.
Well, like, you see a lot of influencers, like especially people who've been through like illness, whether it be mental or physical, and they always look dead happy and smile, like, yeah, if I got through it, you can get through it. But they don't show you like the struggle a lot of the time. And they're just like, oh, I took this diet and did it, you know, I lost the weight. Wait, it's so much harder than that.
And that's interesting in your work, because initially you just had the 4 figures talking about, well, I think initially there were 3 figures maybe, and they were kind of individuals showing a progress, weren't they? But your kind of decision to how you work it and how you ended up showing it at this moment, it, because of those extra layers, you're showing the in-between stages as well. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, there's 4 figures, isn't there? The first one is the person in bed put to an IV. So in my case, chemotherapy, and then I had to kind of learn how to walk again because the treatment really had an effect on me. And then I'm at this, my current present is like trying to walk again. But the stage I do want to be at is running again. I mean, like I said, the future's uncertain. I don't know if we'll ever reach that stage, but that's what I'm hoping for in the future. But to me, that shows that I was once that person in that bed having treatment. That's my past now. I'm now not at the stage, and I am progressing. And I think that should be celebrated, that I'm moving on, you know? I am making progress. And it's not been easy.
And how do you think about society, and particularly maybe with COVID now, where do you think we are in our journey of it if we were looking at your work?
I think everyone's just kind of trying in between that stage of getting out the wheelchair and walking again. Now, I know, well, to me, I ended up being in the wheelchair, walking absolutely miles, and then after I got pneumonia, I ended up back in the wheelchair again. So sometimes, like I said, it's a roller coaster. You can progress and then go back. Now, with like the news today of potentially another lockdown again on Monday, we could go back to the person in the wheelchair. But I don't think that's the end of the world. We could then go back to the person walking and then eventually running. That's what I think. One thing I just hope it teaches people as well is compassion. That's one thing. It's the reason why I've got text in it. Well, I said to you before, I put the word "our" in because I want it to be like a community element. Because I think that's one thing that throughout COVID I've really noticed is people don't really have compassion for each other. I've made a lot of jokes like, oh, I'm an expert in isolation. I was doing quarantine lifestyle before it was cool, but I still care about other people. You know, like, I've been trying to tell people like, you will get through it. You will survive this. You know, but people have just been kind of pointing fingers at each other or saying, I've got it worse than you, kind of thing, rather than listen to each other and help each other.
And what do you think, Caitlin, is what do you think is the end? Is there an end for this? For if we're thinking about things, what is the end point?
Just everyone has compassion for each other and realizing that we all can get through things together and it's okay to ask for help and trust others.
That's so interesting because, as you said before, most people see the end as the product.
Yeah.
You know, the Instagram picture, the here I am, everything's great. But actually, what you're saying is the end is being part of that conversation and story and allowing it to carry on.
Have compassion, speak to people, allow people to tell their stories without interrupting them or judging them right away or jumping to conclusions. Also, listen to people's struggles, have compassion for them. Like, in a way, we should be celebrating people talking about their struggles rather than shaming them for it. Like, I know, like, people going about mental health a lot with, like, men now talking about theirs. And I think that should be celebrated. People talking about their struggles. Same for me. Like, I was ashamed. I carried a lot of guilt, and I spoke about my struggles. And people also came out and were also celebrating it. So it's talking about our struggles and how we've progressed from it, and then celebrating it.